Hey y'all, it's Tammy with Collard Valley Cooks, and today we're making a 1927 old-fashioned spoon bread, something like you've never had before. Absolutely delicious. Good morning, it's Tammy with Real Southern Woman. We are making another 1927 recipe from our Good Meals and How to Prepare Them Good Housekeeping book that's copyrighted in 1927. Today we're making old-fashioned spoon bread. It is a delicious spoon bread that's made in a baking dish. I'm going to use my iron skillet. You preheat the skillet or baking dish in the oven, and you use cornmeal, scalded milk, baking powder, melted fat. I'm using butter for the fat, salt, egg yolks, and egg whites. And you beat the egg whites. We're going to get started on this. I'm so glad you're joining us. What's so cool about this old cookbook, y'all, is it has a black market out of hand newspaper clipping in it, so you can read that. I might clip a picture of it and do a screenshot for you guys. It's pretty cool. And then it also has a handwritten recipe by somebody's grandmother, Elizabeth. I have never tried this. I'm super excited to give it a try. I'm going to put my recipe book right here on my little recipe book holder. It's about to fall apart. The binding is coming apart. It's just really old, and I'm sure the glue has had its last lick, or whatever you want to call it. All right, one of the first things I'm going to do, it says to use a double boiler. Instead of using a double boiler, I am using a non-stick Viking skillet so you guys can really watch the process easier. And I know it's not going to scorch because it's a Viking skillet, and I'm going to stir it, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to warm up our milk. So I'm going to turn the skillet on, and we're going to pour in 2 cups of whole milk. And I'm just going to scald this milk before I start adding the cornmeal. While that's getting warm and heating up, we're going to separate 3 eggs. With this recipe, you beat egg whites and you fold them into the mixture. So we're going to go ahead and separate these eggs. These eggs are cold, and that way they're easier to separate. So I'm going to put the whites in one container and the yellows in another one. And we're going to take a fork and beat these up a little bit so that they're ready to add when we get ready for that step. So you got time to prep a little bit while you're getting this milk warm, okay? I'm gonna turn it down just a little bit, and we're gonna hop over here and beat up our egg whites. All right, let's go ahead and beat our egg whites while we're waiting on that milk to get warm. I turned it down on low. Now, when you beat your egg whites, you want to beat them until they form a stiff peak, and that's really close. Close enough for me. If you overbeat them, they'll get lumpy. All right, I would call our milk scalding by now. It is nice and hot, starting to barely get a simmer on it, which is what you want it to do. Now we're going to start gradually adding a ½ cup of cornmeal. And you're going to cook this until it's like a mush. I think I'll use my gravy whisk. Let me grab it. And this is plain cornmeal. This is not cornmeal mix that has the flour in it that I'm used to using all the time when I use my white lily. This is actual just plain cornmeal. It's a yellow cornmeal, and I want it to cook a minute because I want it to be nice and soft in my bread. We're going to add a teaspoon of salt to it. A half a teaspoon of baking powder. So we added our baking powder, and we added our, that smells good. And we added our salt. That smells so good. Now you're going to put in a couple of tablespoons of fat. Now I'm going to use butter. And I'm going to go ahead and let this melt and stir in before I add my eggs. And that way it'll be cooled down just a little bit before I add my eggs. I'm going to use one of my little baby spatulas to finish it up, okay? All right, that should be mixed in there good. So we got the butter in there now. Got 2 tablespoons of butter. Now we're going to add our egg yellows. Now this is a 1927 spoon bread recipe. Boy, don't it look good already? Isn't that pretty and yellow? Don't you know they had them farm fresh eggs and the chickens, and them yellows were real nice and yellow. You know, if you have farm chickens at the house, the yellows are just beautiful in an egg. All right, now the last thing we do is we add our egg whites and we fold them in and we put it in our baking dish. So you're going to preheat your baking dish. I preheated an iron skillet. Now your oven needs to be on 375 degrees, and you need to preheat your baking dish. And I have decided to use an iron skillet. I'm going to put some shortening in here. It needs to be well greased. So we're going to grease it right now with some good shortening. It's still good and hot. And that shortening ain't going to do nothing but make it taste good, y'all. So put you plenty of grease in there like that. Our egg whites into our bread and fold them in. Get it in the skillet, get it in the oven while it's still hot. That makes it nice and fluffy, y'all. Now this is a 10-inch skillet, just a standard iron skillet. All right, we're going to get it in the oven and bake it at 375 for 30 minutes, it says. Today we made old-fashioned spoon bread. Look how pretty it is. Oh, it's gorgeous. This is just absolutely beautiful. Words cannot describe how pretty it is. All right, this is called spoon bread. So we are going to serve it with a spoon. Look, it's not stuck to the bottom of the skillet at all. Beautiful. Fluffy. You know, back then, the women beat their egg whites for their cakes and their breads, and that's what made them so fluffy and spongy and good. And this is just a bread that they would serve with dinner. But isn't it pretty? Now let's give it a try. Now even if it's made with cornmeal, Even if it's made with cornmeal, I'm sure it's not gritty at all. It's nice and brown, golden brown on the bottom. That is really good. It tastes kind of like an egg custard bread. It's really different than anything you've ever had. It is definitely different than cornbread. If you've ever had this, then you know that this is truly an old original recipe. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I've never tasted this. It is absolutely delicious and unlike anything you've ever tasted. I hope you've enjoyed watching Collard Valley Cooks, where we cook like Mama did. Love y'all. Y'all come back and see me.